This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Welcome back, everyone. It is time once again to check out some viewer mail. I've got some awesome books and zines that I want to share with you today. This is going to be a good one. I've got some really nice stuff. I'm going to start with two books that were sent in by a gentleman named Richard Hall, and I want to give you a little bit of context before I get into these about Richard. So Richard and I have actually emailed back and forth for a little bit, and he notes this in his letter, and I'll just read this to you. I'm 59 years old, was fortunate enough to retire from full-time employment in 2018. In 2019, he took a workshop with John Blakemore, and he mentioned this when we were emailing. For those of you who have watched my channel for over the years, it's been 16 of them now, I have mentioned many times one of my biggest influences, definitely in terms of black and white photography, is a gentleman named John Blakemore. He's an English photographer, absolutely brilliant. As far as I'm concerned, when we get into this echelon of black and white photography, there are two main figures who really define the possibilities of what could be done in the darkroom. First would be Ansel Adams' Zone System. Well, Ansel Adams and Fred Archer. And I think he established something where there was a lot of creativity in what Ansel did. I absolutely love his work. I've seen shows of Ansel's that are just stunning. You got to sit down. They're so good. Anyway, he had one school of thinking on that, but the book that really opened my mind and just blew the whole thing wide open was John Blakemore's black and white photography book. It is amazing, and he will do weird stuff like question things and break rules. Like, what if you have an image and you just use light tones, so nothing higher than about zone 5 or 6? You don't have any dark tones in there. It's all made up of highlights. And it just really woke me up into possibilities and got me really excited about the production of black and white photography. And I'm talking in the analog world, but a lot of that is also, I brought that over and it's influenced what I do digitally. Anyway, John Blakemore is the man. Anyway, they're friends, and he sent me this picture, which is one of my favorite things ever. It's John watching one of my videos. So I never thought in a million years I would come anywhere near John Blakemore, and just to see him checking me out was awesome. So, Richard, I appreciate that. But I want to share some of Richard's work with you today, which is going to be something else completely. There are two books here, one called 32 Miles, and this one called This Book Is Just For Me. I'm going to read you a little of his note, which reads, "The first book that I'm enclosing I made with a local actor named Emily May Hodgson, and was made in part fulfillment of my master's. This book is just for me as a journal/diary that includes archival material from a cousin born and raised in the same house as Emily and died 100 years ago, bizarrely at the same age Emily was when we made the book. The work examines some of the parallels of their lives. The book is French fold construction and contains material between the leaves. Some of the material is archival, some of it is observations and commentary on Emily's life in her own hand. There are photographs of cousin Ethel, of Emily, drawings by both, and a recreation of a photograph by Steichen of Emily that we made. The date of the original photograph is the same as the portrait of Ethel. The work was challenging, intensive, and quite an emotional journey for both of us, and I will say that I will always be grateful for the honest way that Emily allowed me to portray her story." All right, so let's stop right there. That's a lot to digest. So this book is just for me. I absolutely adore it. This is very highly conceptual. I love the whole idea, and Richard mentioned this in his emails, that he is an artist who works in photo books. That kind of is the medium for him. Of course, he takes photographs, but it's all going to be a concept that fits together. I have never seen anything quite on this level where you have a photographer that's collaborating with someone who's an actress. And there is this theater element to the whole thing. This is actually very difficult to show you on here. But a lot of these pages, when I get into this, I was flipping through the first time, and it's like they're kind of folded over. And I'm like, what's going on here? And something's peeking out. And then you realize that there's stuff. And it's just like mementos, the screen pictures in here, handwritten notes. This creates a really interesting experience as you go through, and I absolutely love the photography. I love the collaborative aspect of it. I just think this is so well done. This is a really inspiring book, and I don't know, Richard, if you did this as a one-off. I hope you didn't send me your only copy, but this is really cool. It's almost zine-like in that it's really raw in terms of its production, but that's the whole point, is that this is actually produced in a way that has a handmade feel to it and feels real. And man, outstanding job. So that is the first book. Now I want to get to the second one, 32 Miles, and I'll continue on Richard's note. He says the second new book, 32 Miles, explores how the environment can impact someone's life. Sutton in Ashfield and Lincoln in England are basically 32 miles apart as the crow flies. This book features images from the two places with some double-page spreads featuring some spaces in between. Sutton is a deprived mining town, while Lincoln is now a thriving university and cathedral city. The central character, Emily May, grew up in Sutton and moved to Lincoln to attend the university where she still lives. The narrative explores geographical and socioeconomic issues, but also articulates a journey of personal salvation and artistic expression. Many of the images have been illustrated and painted by Emily May, providing insight into her thoughts and experiences. The viewer can reflect on their growth and ask how the environment affects mental well-being and life outcomes. I can imagine how busy you are, but I would appreciate your thoughts on the books, if that is all possible, and how we might build on this work. Kindest regards, Richard. Richard, again, highly conceptual. I love the theater element of these. I love the collaboration of working with an actress on here. Man, this is so cool. And really, I mean, I say this now and then, but I mean, the highest compliment that I can give anybody and the highest critique is, I want to see more. You've left me like really enjoying this, and man, that's better than the opposite where you don't want to see any more. But man, I mean, these are great. I love that these are very different too. You're not falling into a visual aesthetic style that carries everything. Not that there would be anything wrong with that, but if you're going to be conceptual, you got to have a good concept, and I think you clearly have it. I think that of the two, and obviously these are very different, but man, the scrapbook idea of putting stuff in here, and I love to see this experimental thing. I think this one is definitely more subtle, but it's still just as good in many ways. And man, just keep going. I love the collaborative aspect. There have been a couple other projects that I've covered, in the last year or so, of people who've collaborated with models or somebody like that, or a dancer. But I think the whole idea of collaborating with an actress is something you just don't see as much, at least in photography as a visual art. But anyway, man, really nice job, and I really can't praise you enough. And thank you for the introduction to Blakemore. I think that's really awesome. You are in the right hands in terms of a guru that just, in my personal feeling is that he doesn't get much better than Blakemore when it gets into that style. So anyway, appreciate the books. I will link up to Richard's work below. I highly recommend you check him out, support what he's doing. Really creative and really different, and I'm really impressed. So Richard, thanks for sending, man. This has been a real thrill. All right, I've got a couple other projects that I want to share with you. We're going to go from 1970s New York City music scene to war-torn Ukraine, but real quick, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor today, who are the awesome folks over at Squarespace. How easy is it to build an amazing website in a matter of minutes? Squarespace has you covered. It's dead simple. Head over to Squarespace, hit get started. You can start by using Squarespace Blueprint AI and SEO tools, which will give you an impressive website in no time. Something unique because, you're not like other websites. Give your site a name. Next, you can build your homepage. We'll start with a few preset layouts just to get us going. Want to sell products like prints, books, maybe you make a zine? Well, you can feature those on your homepage. Create a few more sections if you want. Let's also give it a color palette. There's a whole bunch to choose from. Just get us started. We can change this all later. Next, let's select the typography choices. Welcome to your website. Everything is set up and it's all ready for you to customize. Squarespace is built on Fluid Engine, the next generation of website design. Select Edit, and Fluid Engine allows you to drag, place, and resize any element on the page. You can snap these to a grid, you can make them float on top of one another, you can freeform however you like. You can even preview and adjust how the site looks on either desktop or mobile. The layouts are independent. Of course, you'll want a portfolio for your work. Creating an image gallery is as easy as dropping a folder of images on your web browser. Once uploaded, you can drag to resort, customize the look, and Squarespace writes all of the code for you. Everything just works and it looks fabulous. Want to sell your own prints, books, or zines? Flexible payments allow you to make the checkout process absolutely seamless when you sell products or services. You can accept credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, and in eligible countries, you can offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. You should try Squarespace for yourself. It's absolutely free, no credit card required. Just go to squarespace.com/AOP, sign up for that free trial. If you decide Squarespace is right for you, I can save you an additional 10% on your order by using offer code AOP on checkout. That's right, the code is AOP. So stop procrastinating, go build your website today. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. All right, next up we have two books that were sent in by Joseph Szkodzinski. I hope I'm saying your last name right. Interestingly enough, he includes a really nice note here. And much like Richard's work, where one of those books was done for his thesis in college, one of these books was done for Joseph's thesis as well, which was this one, Because the Night. Joseph went to School of Visual Art in New York after discovering photography was his passion and graduated in 1981, and this book was used for his thesis. It contains images of New York nightlife that are really crazy good. I mean, this captures a point in time. I don't know, Joseph, if you realized at that time that you were, in fact, doing this, but there's some big names in here in the punk band scene and the clubs, and I mean, I just think this is outstanding. It has a really cool, gritty look to it. You've got people like John Belushi, Henry Rollins, the Ramones, Bauhaus, the Misfits, Dead Kennedys, and I realize that anyone in the audience under the age of about 50 probably doesn't know any of those names, but this is a really interesting historical document, and man, I keep this in print. You should be very proud of this. I absolutely love it. The second thing he sent was Lost in America, which is something that he says he considers to be unfinished at this point. So this is more in a zine format, and I love what's going on here. There's definitely a nod to some of my influences in here that I think we probably share together. I see a little bit of William Eggleston in here, and of course all the stuff with the 28mm lens definitely brings to mind Gary Winogrand. Even the rawness of a lot of this is definitely, you know, kind of conjures up the whole post-Robert Frank American School of Photography in New York, which is kind of one of my favorite periods in history. Anyway, I love this. I think it's really cool. I want to make a note on here, not just to Joseph, but to everybody else here. And I kind of like the idea of this being unfinished. When I do my zine workshops, a lot of students who come into those have an idea of something they actually want to turn into a book. And I think doing this little zine format, where you're doing something that's much smaller, much thinner, is a really cool way of experimenting with that, when you can kind of see what's working, what's not working, how the pages are going to flow. I can tell you, of all the stuff that I've done, you can look at it on a computer screen when you're doing your layout all you want. You conceptualize it. One thing that really helps me is to print things out, put them on the floor. I can put them up on the wall and look at them, and I can live with them and see how they work. That is a really good thing to do, but really, all in all, you don't know how it's going to look and feel till you actually see this in printed form, and I think that this is an awesome idea for when you're doing something that is going to be a much larger body of work, and so I love the fact that you said this is unfinished. I also like the idea of printing things out along the way, and they become little demo tapes, so to speak, and, you know, demo tapes reminding me of this, too, but anyway, Joseph, this is awesome work, man. If you guys want to check his stuff out, I will link to him in the show description below. Support your fellow colleagues. We've got some awesome stuff that is coming in today. So much appreciated, man. You should be very proud of these. All right, next up, we have an interesting package that came in from Pierre Toutain-Dorbec. I hope I'm saying your name right, as well as his wife, I guess, Claudia Toutain-Dorbec. Making assumptions here. I've looked everywhere. I don't think there was a note that was included in this, but it's some really interesting work that I want to share with you. So of the zines here, In Rust I Trust is very cool. I love the way, Pierre, that you've gone through here, and it seems like you're really in love with showing textures, colors, and this is a really cool subject that lends itself definitely to that. So some really nice work in here. He also included this book, which is called War-Torn Ukraine, which is absolutely fabulous. And this book is a full-on project of war-torn Ukraine that Pierre did with his wife. I'll read you a little of the intro here. This is very interesting. Wars kill civilians. From Afghanistan to Yemen, countless numbers have lost their lives to civil wars, interstate conflicts, and other military incursions. In Ukraine, there were at least 5,000 recorded killings of civilians in the first 6 months following Russian Federation's invasion on February 24th, 2022. Almost 600 of those civilians were children. The actual death toll is likely significantly higher. Most were killed by explosive devices like rockets and missiles. Some were executed on roadways. Besides those killed by weapons, an unknown number of civilians lacking access to life-saving care and medication because of the destruction of social and health services died as well. Indeed, war kills. Far more often, however, war forces people to live with it. After almost 6 months of war, over 12 million Ukrainians, one-third of the population, have been forced to flee, including 5 million who have sought refuge in neighboring countries. Millions are stranded in violence-afflicted areas. Many families have separated. Whether they decide to stay in place or seek shelter away from home in Ukraine or abroad, the survivors are forced to live with the war and its consequences. Their lives are the lives that Pierre Toutain-Dorbec and his wife Claudia have documented in this book. Pierre, this is awesome work that you guys have done, and I doubt you're asking me for for a critique on this because I would actually feel pretty kind of weird about doing something on a book that is this serious. A couple of things that I do want to say. I love the portraits that are in here. I think that's some of the best stuff when you get into putting faces with the stories we hear on the news and such. It has a really strong impact, and I think that is some of the strongest work in here. The only thing that I would say in terms of criticism here is some of these images, and I'm not sure who shot what here necessarily. I think some of them are yours, some of them are your wife's. Some of these landscape types of images, they're very dramatic when you see blown out buildings, landscapes, or cityscapes, I should say. I think the editing gets a little heavy-handed here, and the only reason I say that is because it has a very different feel when you start going into portraits based on that. I don't think you have to lighten it up completely. I like the effect, but I think just backing off a little might give it a little bit smoother feel. But otherwise, this is an important project, and thank you for sharing this and for sending it to me. I'm amazed that you guys went over there to capture this. Again, the whole idea of photojournalism, and I don't know that this really falls in the same category because Pierre makes books, but to be able to show people what things look like, I think is important. So I will link up to their work below, and support your colleagues, folks. Check them out. And I want to thank everybody who sent stuff in today. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, later.